Hello, good morning. My name is Luis, and this is my presentation on the final four chapters for Leading Change, titled, in this case, for all four, Navigating the Reality of Organizational Transformation. Let's begin. So, the first thing that the four chapters covered was why change stalls. And from what I gathered in my own point of view, the main point is that we must be persistent with any sort of change because the reason for why is because many forces in just whatever in personal lives or even just in business context will always find a way to stall the process far short or from the finish line, which can lead to more doubts in people's mind into thinking that change can be possible, or in this case would be impossible. And since when many forces try to push on the idea that change won't happen, many start to second doubt themselves, and momentum can be lost. And from there, regression is going to follow up. So, what's important in terms to not having a change stall is, like I mentioned, be persistent with any sort of change because um, it's important to go for what you want. It's important to understand the main key objective. And the key components that are important for this change is you need to have the sufficient leadership, the important understanding of why people want to stall this change, and also exceeding with some sort of urgency since this world is rapidly changing. And if you can't adapt to a rapidly changing world, then you're gonna get eaten up. So the next thing that was mentioned is the gravity of interdependence, which I put as the main point that interdependence is similar to like jumbled up cables. So if you can see in this image right here, there's a bunch of cables just jumbled up. And I use this as a metaphor primarily because when it comes to changing highly interdependent settings, you can't really just change one at a time since it's gonna nearly change everything. So just like how you try to pull a cable from a pile, sometimes you try to get one, but you end up getting more than what you needed. So because of these interconnections, it's important to understand that you can't just move one by itself, and you have to move dozens, hundreds, or even thousands. So in this case, for the managers, it's important to identify the unnecessary interdependencies to be able to understand which ones needs to be changed and which ones are necessary. So if we were to go back to the context of being with cables, you would pull out the cable you need, but you need to see which ones are unnecessary and you just take them out one by one. So the next thing is persistent resistance. This essentially means that resistance is always going to be present no matter where. And the thing is that it will never fully disappear because people are always like protective about their own methods, methodologies, or sometimes they're overprotective over change. They don't like change. And even this could also affect like specialists, i.e., engineers or finance people, since they won't be able to fully grasp the understanding of like what the change is all about. So it's important to be aware of that persistence towards the resistance will always be there. So it's important to direct our own impatience towards lowering the sense of complacency from others rather than just tell people to, I change. You gotta change because of this. No, it's more of like going slow with people and explaining to them that, listen, this is why it's important to change. This is how it's gonna affect us, but also you. So making them feel like comfortable in their own skin is a way to help them negate the resistance against change. Second thing coming up is the scaling of change. So the thing is like when it comes to change, it's not just a one-man job. It's a team job, a team effort. And the thing is that teams must begin to expand for more complex tasks since one person can't just handle everything on their own. There needs to be certain specialists that can help move the change forward. So the thing that also needs to be focused up on lot is vision, the alignment, and just clearing the path overall, since this helps negate the change into a more broader and more open-minded perspective. So with the scaling in mind, it's gonna help multiple projects being able to run simultaneously without needing to have any sort of one-man show. And then the thing that we've mentioned at least more than once is culture. Culture is such an important factor. It had to be mentioned 3 times. The main point I put here was culture is what helps organizations find a sort of meaning, since it's also the invisible anchor. Many people have been ran with the misconception they can't just start a transformation by quote changing the culture. And the thing is, it's like the culture is quite important. So sometimes it must be changed because it houses how people act, what we care about, which most of the times we don't see it in person since it's more of like a unwritten rule, if you were to say it like that. So the change will be slowly coming. So it's important to just alter the behaviors first, alter the actions, and then slowly but surely, once you change these sort of like small bits, people will be able to see the visible results. And then once it's all said and done, it's important to change the anchor near the end of the process, since if you just do it in between, it's gonna give out a sense of like this guy is just trying to, be selfish, trying to be arrogant. And it's important to just go slowly, you know. It's kind of like when you're trying to get your siblings like to understand the importance of getting up early. It's like one does it once, twice, 3 times, then the next thing you know, someone else does it once, twice, 3 times, then they start slowly understanding the change. And then that's how in the end ends up to adapting a new sense of change. Or in this case would be the change of culture. So the thing that's also been worth mentioning is the 21st century quote incubator organization. What this means essentially is like the form of like structure that most businesses run in. And the thing is like what I mentioned as the main point is environmental vitality will always continue to advance, meaning that there's always going to be new changes that must be understood and must be adapted as soon as possible. Since most 20th century structures aren't that, they aren't that adaptable since most of them are like just becoming more obsolete. And the thing is like for most businesses, they must be able to adapt into these situations, or else they'll just get, as I like to say, eaten up quickly by other businesses who would understand. So, like a good example would be like with AI. Since AI is becoming the new thing, most businesses are adapting AI into their routines as soon as possible. And the thing is like with slower businesses that don't depend or don't understand the grasp of AI, they're most likely just going to get left behind in the dust. So what's more important also in terms for like the employees is that they also need to be able to understand that they themselves need to be more transparent about their, themselves. They need to be honest with how they produce their data and also encourage themselves to take more risks, since that's also going to let most people to showcase their own talents and what kind of like abilities they can provide to a team. Speaking of individuals, the thing that as individuals, not just, in business, but also in life as a whole, we must adapt more of a growth mindset for lifelong learning. Because nowadays, career success is more of like depending on how well you know things and how well you can adapt to new things. And with that in mind, it's important for us to just move out of our own comfort zones with what we know. And we also have to be honest with how well we know things. Because sometimes we may say, oh, I know how this works. I'm good at this. But then later on, you'll see and you won't understand it well. So, just like my own dad says, it's important to ask questions and be able to have some sort of feedback, since that will also help you in the long run. And embracing the future is not just, a current necessity. It's more of like a sense of it's meant to help you give a sense of satisfaction and also give you a sense of understanding what this company's mission is, but also what you personally want to achieve. So, as a whole, it's important to stay in the course, stay in our lane. Since transformation is not just, one day, like day to night process. No, it will take years, it will take months, and it's important to keep on moving forward with what we want. And we can't just be confusing, a short win with a long-term win. This was also mentioned in the last presentation, and it's important to mention it again because it's also how we as individuals move through life. It's important for us to understand that if we want change, we fight for it. There's gonna be people bringing us down, and we must be persistent with what we want. We can't just, give up on the first try. You gotta keep pushing, gotta keep pushing. And you see small wins, for example, say you're working out and then you see you lost weight. Don't celebrate too much. You have a big goal, right? You want to lose a specific amount. You have to go for the ultimate victory. It's not just about celebrating in one spot. And then in the end, in terms of leadership, it's the required way of surviving in this volatile world. Since leaders lead by example, and leaders are able to fully understand what is coming up next, and they're more future oriented. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you so much, and I hope you all have a great day.